On November 28, 1960, two Italian radio amateurs were tuning into radio waves in hopes of picking up transmissions from Soviet satellites, when suddenly, the silence of the night was interrupted by a peculiar signal. It was a type of code that repeated incessantly, with a frequency that was decreasing and a wavelength that was increasing. According to the Doppler effect, this indicated that the object, whatever it was moving away from Earth. The operators, curious, began to decipher the signal and discovered that it was a Morse code message, translated into just 3 letters, SOS. This is just one of many stories surrounding this fascinating mystery, an enigma that has been the subject of studies, research, and of course many conspiracy theories. Could an astronaut have been lost in space? The famous image of American astronaut Bruce McCandless is breathtaking but also nerve-wracking. Imagine being completely lost in space, with Earth hundreds of kilometers below your feet. In McCandless's case, everything was meticulously planned and he safely returned to the spacecraft and then to Earth. But what if a human had been launched into space and never returned? There are several stories about supposed lost astronauts, or more precisely, missing cosmonauts. The only difference is the place of birth. The term astronaut generally refers to citizens of the US and other countries, while cosmonaut is used for those born in Russia or the former Soviet Union. And there are also taikonauts, the Chinese who travel to space. But regardless of the name, there are reports shrouded in mystery about people who may have perished in space and whose stories were hidden by authorities. Most of these cases occurred during the Cold War. At that time, the world was under high tension due to the rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union. Thus, both on Earth and in space, the space race became the new front in the superpower struggle. Americans and Soviets competed to achieve the greatest space milestones. And despite the US being the first to land on the moon in 1969, the Soviets were pioneers in many other achievements before that. They were the ones who launched the first satellite into orbit, Sputnik 1. They also sent the first man into space, Yuri Gagarin. And they were the ones who sent the first woman into space, Valentina Tereshkova. In addition, they were responsible for sending the first dog into space, the female dog Laika, poor Laika, who never returned. Although the Soviets were pioneers in many space achievements, they also faced great tragedies. The first death in a space mission was that of cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov in 1967 on Soyuz 1. The parachute of his capsule failed during re-entry and it crashed to the ground with full force. A few years later, in 1971, another Soviet tragedy occurred during re-entry. The Soyuz 11 capsule suffered depressurization, resulting in the instant death of the 3 cosmonauts on board. Due to these risks, it was common for authorities not to announce space missions in advance. Often missions were only announced after the rocket had left the atmosphere. If everything went well, great. If something went wrong, the authorities would cover up the incident and give another explanation, avoiding admitting space tragedies. Propaganda was crucial during the Cold War. Any sign of failure could be used by the adversary to demoralize the rival regime. Therefore, many suspicious cases were swept under the rug by Soviet authorities. The most severe of these was the Nedelin catastrophe in 1960. This tragedy was a massive explosion that occurred while a missile was being prepared for launch. The Soviet Union tried to silence the incident, and the exact number of deaths is still unknown, but it is estimated to be between 60 and 150. Other cases are also enigmatic, such as the death of Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, in a plane crash whose causes were never fully clarified. Another mysterious death was that of Valentin Bondarenko, who died in a fire during space endurance tests in a soundproof chamber. The information was kept secret at the time and was only revealed 25 years later. All this mystery surrounding the Soviet space program eventually gave rise to various conspiracy theories, including those about missing cosmonauts. And it is exactly these stories that we will talk about now. One of the most well-known cases is that of Grigory Nelyubov. He was selected for the first group of Soviet cosmonauts. The group was photographed and these photos were released. But sometime later, a new photo emerged showing the same image, but with one of the individuals removed. This man was Grigory Nelyubov. The Soviet Union claimed that he had become an undisciplined soldier who liked to drink, being a bad example. Therefore, they decided to erase his image from history as if he had never existed. This strange story fueled theories that Nelyubov might have been a cosmonaut lost in space. The Soviet Union denied it, saying that he was transferred to a base in Siberia and was hit by a train. Oh, of course, that clears everything up. Anyway, this is just one of several suspicious cases. Another famous story involves not one but 4 cosmonauts. A 1959 report before Yuri Gagarin's mission said that reliable sources in Czechoslovakia reported 4 failed Russian attempts to send a person into space, including a woman. All of them were said to have died. However, a journalist discovered that it concerned high-altitude paratroopers who had never been to space. A few more years later, another rumor about a missing cosmonaut surfaced. Just days before Gagarin's launch, the Soviet Union announced that Vladimir Ilyushin had suffered a car accident, but a British tabloid claimed he had died in a failed space mission. The rumor gained new versions, including that his spacecraft had crashed in China and that the accident had been covered up by local authorities. Experts debunked the claim, stating that it was all just a rumor of the time. It seems that fake news is not new. The narrative war between the US and the Soviet Union meant that unverified news made it to newspapers, which often believed the official versions without question. An example is a 1962 news item about a Soviet cosmic coffin. In reality, it was most likely the mannequin Ivan Ivanovich, used in space tests. Ivan traveled with a recording to test radio communication. This story is reminiscent of one of the greatest Soviet pranks. In 1968, the Soviet Union launched Zond 5, an unmanned spacecraft that completed a full orbit around the moon, carrying plants, fly eggs, and 2 turtles. But apparently, the cosmonauts on Earth decided to play a trick on the Americans. Knowing that the US intercepted radio signals, they left a pre-recorded audio saying the spacecraft was approaching the moon's surface. This caused panic in the US, which feared that the Soviets were arriving first. In the end, Zond 5 returned to Earth with the turtles alive and the plants healthy, but the message was a classic example of space psychological warfare. And so the stories of missing cosmonauts remain in the realm of speculation and theories, mixed with a touch of disinformation and much mystery. The Soviet space program still holds many secrets. The silence about certain missions and tragic events has given rise to legends and theories that continue to captivate the imagination to this day. And while these stories continue to intrigue everyone, the true legacy of the Soviet space program is a combination of impressive achievements and an enduring aura of the mysteries. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing content. See you in the next video.